Lyra woke before dawn, as she had every morning for the past 5 years, to the quiet hum of the colony. The early light of Erebos Prime was pale and cold, brushing the tall, metal structures with grayish silver. Smoke from distant factories curled into the sky, painting it with streaks of orange and brown. The colony was alive, but not welcoming. Most of the humans lived in small enclaves at the edge of alien settlements, their existence modest and cautious. Lyra's home, a simple structure built from salvaged panels, was tucked between 2 giant Illyrian habitation towers, but inside it felt warm and safe. She carefully stepped across the floor, her long fingers brushing against the small, worn table where Neva slept. Neva's breathing was steady and calm, the little alien-human hybrid form curled under a blanket. Her daughter's hair, dark and tangled, reflected faint traces of the dawn light. Lyra smiled softly. Each day she made the same silent promise to herself. She would get Neva to school safely, no matter the cost. It had not been easy. The world outside was harsh, and traveling 10 miles through alien-controlled territory each morning was a challenge that tested both body and spirit. But Lyra had adapted. She moved with purpose, each step precise and careful. She understood the patterns of patrols, the weak points in the industrial defenses, and the best times to avoid the heavy traffic of alien transporters. Experience had made her clever, and cleverness was a weapon just as effective as strength. Neva stirred, blinking awake with sleepy eyes. "Morning, Mom," she said, her small voice carrying a mix of innocence and the sharp awareness that only children growing up in difficult times had. She climbed out of bed, rubbing her eyes. "Morning, little one," Lyra replied, her tone soft. "Eat quickly. We have a long day ahead." The breakfast was modest. Reconstituted protein cubes and boiled water, enough to fill their stomachs and give them energy for the walk. Neva ate carefully, aware that every minute counted. The school was a human enclave in the middle of alien territory, small but fiercely protective of its students. It was the one place where humans could learn freely, away from alien oversight, where knowledge was not restricted by laws meant to suppress their kind. By the time Neva had finished, the pale light had spread across the colony. Lyra checked her path. The first stretch of the journey took them along narrow lanes between the factory towers. The walls of the buildings were etched with advertisements in alien scripts, glowing faintly even in the morning light. Most of the aliens moved with a deliberate slowness, tall and powerful, their eyes scanning for anything unusual. Lyra moved differently, fluidly, softly, blending into the shadows and using the environment to her advantage. The first obstacle came quickly. A small patrol of insectoid aliens emerged from a side passage. Their eyes glinted as they scanned the lane. Lyra instinctively pulled Neva closer behind her. The patrol was not hostile yet, but it was the kind that demanded respect. Many travelers, unprepared, had been stopped and questioned, sometimes detained. Lyra had a plan. She slowed her pace, blending into the lane's dim light, and shifted subtly to the side where an abandoned service hatch offered a brief hiding place. Neva followed without hesitation, understanding her mother's movements as if they were second nature. Minutes later, the patrol moved past, unaware of the small figures pressed against the wall. Lyra exhaled softly. "We're clear," she whispered. Neva smiled faintly, proud of their successful evasion. The next stretch was harder. The terrain shifted to open industrial fields, metal walkways suspended above pools of steaming chemical waste. The smell was sharp, burning the throat if one breathed too deeply. Lyra led Neva carefully, counting her steps, ensuring each foot landed on secure metal plates. One misstep could mean serious injury or exposure to toxic fumes. "Mom," Neva said quietly, "why do we have to walk every day? Why can't we ride one of the transport vehicles?" Lyra considered the question for a moment. The answer was simple but complicated. The vehicles are fast, but dangerous. Aliens control most of them, and they don't stop for humans. It's safer to walk, even if it takes longer. One step at a time, that's how we survive. Neva nodded, accepting the logic. She trusted her mother, as children always did. But Lyra could sense the worry behind her daughter's question. Every day, Neva saw the strain in her mother's movements, the fatigue, the ache in her limbs, and the tension that never left her face. Lyra ignored the pain. She could not afford to slow down. Not now, not ever. Halfway through the journey, they reached the industrial highway. Massive transport trucks roared past, their tires sending vibrations through the metal catwalks. Some carried chemicals, others carried supplies for the alien towers. Crossing the highway was dangerous. One misjudgment, one misstep, and they could be crushed or swept away. Lyra studied the patterns. She had memorized them over countless mornings. The slow trucks, the quick ones, the moments of pause when the massive haulers stopped to refuel. Timing was everything. She took Neva's hand, guiding her across the first span of the highway. The noise was deafening, but Lyra's grip was firm. Grounding Neva, they reached the other side safely. Neva let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "I'm glad you're with me, Mom," she said. Lyra smiled, squeezing her daughter's hand. "Always," she said. "I will always be with you." The final stretch was quieter but no less dangerous. The school lay near the edge of the colony, beyond a section of abandoned warehouses and defunct transport lines. Most aliens ignored the area, assuming it was abandoned. That made it perfect. But it also meant few humans dared venture there alone. Lyra's heart swelled with pride every time she saw the school in the distance. It was small, with rough walls and a protective fence. But inside, children learned about science, history, and art subjects, often denied in other parts of the colony. As they approached, Lyra spotted a group of alien scavengers loitering near the perimeter. She paused, scanning for escape routes. A small alleyway offered a quick bypass. Neva followed silently. Lyra led them through the narrow path, keeping her body low and alert. The scavengers noticed movement but dismissed it as wind-blown debris. Lyra and Neva slipped past, hearts pounding but unharmed. At last, they reached the school gates. Neva's eyes lit up. "We made it!" she exclaimed, running ahead to greet the other children. Teachers and students alike looked up in surprise. It was unusual for Lyra to arrive so early. Usually, she kept her presence subtle. Today, she allowed herself a small smile. A teacher approached her, nodding in quiet acknowledgement. Lyra returned the gesture, her eyes scanning the horizon. The colony beyond the school was vast and unwelcoming. But inside these walls, hope lived. Neva turned back, waving before disappearing into her classroom. Lyra watched for a moment, feeling a mix of relief and pride. Her journey was over for today, but tomorrow it would begin again. Lyra's walk had always been more than a commute. It was a testament to endurance, love, and determination. In a world dominated by aliens, humans, and those like her, relied on cleverness, adaptability, and courage to survive. She was not the strongest, not the fastest, but she was relentless. And in her heart, she knew that every step, every risk, was worth it for Neva's future. Turning back toward the colony, Lyra allowed herself a brief moment of rest. The industrial towers rose like silent guardians, indifferent to her presence. Yet, she felt no fear. She had walked this path countless times and would continue to do so. Every mile was a statement. No matter how small or underestimated, she could endure. She could protect. She could prevail. With the first day of school behind them, Lyra's thoughts drifted to tomorrow. She would wake before dawn, prepare Neva, and begin the long walk once more. And perhaps, one day, the journey would be easier. But until that day came, she would walk every mile with determination, love, and unyielding courage, the quiet hero of Erebos Prime. The next morning, Lyra woke with a familiar ache in her legs and shoulders. The journey yesterday had been long, and the strain lingered. But she knew she could not rest. Neva would wake soon, and the school needed to be reached. Lyra dressed quickly, her movements practiced and precise. She checked her pack, ensuring the small ration of water and protein cubes were ready for the walk. The sky was pale again, and the factories in the distance released their usual plumes of smoke, curling into the early light. It was another ordinary morning, in an extraordinary struggle. Neva stirred as Lyra entered her room. "Morning, Mom," she said softly, yawning and rubbing her eyes. "Good morning, little one. Eat quickly," Lyra said. She placed the food on the table and waited, as Neva ate carefully, her small hands moving swiftly. Neva's eyes scanned the room now and then, alert for any sign of danger or change in the routine. Children in the colony learned early that vigilance was a survival skill. They set off soon after breakfast, stepping into the narrow lanes between the tall towers. The usual alien patrols moved slowly, their towering forms casting long shadows on the ground. Lyra's movements were deliberate. She kept her pace steady, her senses alert to every sound and motion. Neva walked close, following her mother's lead with careful precision. Halfway along the lane, Lyra noticed a new obstacle. A group of alien laborers unloading massive crates from a transport vehicle. They were distracted, their attention focused on their work, but the crates blocked the path completely. Lyra paused, scanning the area. Going around the laborers would take them through open ground, where they would be visible to patrols. Waiting was risky, but it might be safer than crossing in plain sight. She crouched slightly, whispering to Neva, "We wait. Patience will help us today." Neva nodded, understanding without a question. Together, they remained still, blending into the shadows as the aliens moved about. Minutes felt like hours, but eventually, the laborers finished their task and moved on. The path cleared, and Lyra led Neva forward once again. The industrial fields loomed ahead. Metal walkways stretched over pools of steaming chemical waste, the air thick with the sharp tang of chemicals. Lyra moved carefully, testing each step before placing her weight. Neva followed, her small feet landing precisely where her mother guided them. Every misstep could be catastrophic, but Lyra's experience kept them safe. As they crossed the walkways, a sudden alarm echoed from a nearby tower. Lyra froze, her heart racing. Alien enforcers were patrolling closer than usual. She pressed Neva against the side of the walkway, lowering her small frame. The enforcer's eyes swept over the walkway but passed them by, distracted by a malfunctioning drone. Lyra waited until the sounds faded, then continued. The walk through the highway was the most dangerous part of the journey. Massive transport trucks roared past, their tires sending vibrations through the metal catwalks. Lyra timed each step with precision, moving when the trucks slowed for a junction. Neva's hand was firm in hers, the little girl trusting completely. Partway across, a truck carrying chemicals sped past unexpectedly, sending a spray of vapor into the air. Lyra's instincts kicked in. She grabbed Neva and ducked behind a support pillar. The chemical mist stung her eyes and throat. But she had prepared for this. A small scarf around her neck filtered the worst of the fumes. After the truck passed, she led Neva through the remaining distance, their breathing heavy but controlled. Beyond the highway, the abandoned warehouses stretched across the horizon. Most humans avoided this area, but Lyra knew it well. It offered a shortcut to the school, though danger always lingered. Shadows moved between the buildings, small scavenger groups of alien opportunists who targeted lone travelers. Lyra's senses were alert, and she guided Neva through narrow gaps and behind crates, minimizing their exposure. Suddenly, a group of scavengers appeared in their path. Lyra froze, assessing the situation. They were larger than her and carried crude weapons, but they were slow and uncoordinated. Lyra's mind raced. She could try to outrun them, but the open space made it risky. Instead, she devised a distraction. She grabbed a loose metal pipe from the ground and tossed it far to the side. The noise echoed through the warehouses, drawing the scavengers' attention. "Now," Lyra whispered to Neva, and they ran, weaving between crates and debris. The scavengers noticed too late and began to chase, but Lyra's knowledge of the terrain gave her the advantage. She led Neva through a narrow gap between two warehouse walls that the larger aliens could not fit through. Breathing heavily, they emerged on the far side, safe once more. Lyra stopped for a moment, letting her heart slow. Neva's face was flushed with adrenaline, but her eyes shone with admiration. "That was amazing, Mom," she said. Lyra smiled faintly. "It is not magic, little one. It is careful thinking and knowing the land. That is how we survive." The final stretch to the school was quieter, but the danger was never fully gone. The fence surrounding the school was visible now, a line of safety in a hostile world. Lyra's pace slowed, not from fatigue, but from relief. Neva ran ahead, eager to reach her friends and teachers. Lyra followed, feeling the weight of the long journey lift slightly. Inside the school, the other children greeted Neva warmly. Teachers nodded at Lyra, acknowledging her arrival without words. Lyra allowed herself a small smile. The day's journey was complete, and Neva was safe. Yet, she knew tomorrow would bring the same challenges. The colony's dangers did not rest, and neither could she. While Neva settled into her classroom, Lyra walked to the edge of the school grounds, looking back toward the path they had crossed. The sun had risen fully now, casting long shadows across the metal and concrete landscape. She felt a mixture of pride and weariness. Each day was a test, but each day they survived, they grew stronger. Lyra's thoughts drifted to the other humans in the colony. Most had accepted their subservient role under alien rule, working quietly and avoiding attention. But Lyra had never been like that. She had learned early that survival required more than compliance. It required intelligence, adaptability, and courage. She had no illusions about her own limitations, but she believed in the strength of careful planning, observation, and persistence. As she prepared to leave the school, Lyra noticed a figure in the distance, a human, unlike the other travelers she had seen. He was tall, with broad shoulders and hands calloused from work. A truck idled nearby, and he moved with the confidence of someone used to navigating the colony's dangers. Their eyes met briefly. Lyra sensed a kindred spirit, someone who understood struggle and determination. She did not approach, not yet, but the recognition lingered in her mind. Her journey back home was quieter, though not without its challenges. The patrols had shifted routes, and she adjusted her path accordingly. Neva's safety was always her priority, and even on the return trip, she remained vigilant. The landscape seemed different now, more alive with movement and sound. She knew every step. Every detail mattered. By the time they reached their home, the sun was high in the sky. Lyra felt the familiar ache in her muscles, the tension in her back, but also the quiet satisfaction of another day completed successfully. Neva rested briefly before beginning her lessons at home, and Lyra took a moment to care for her small garden of salvaged plants. Even in the harsh industrial colony, she nurtured life wherever she could. It was a small act of defiance, a reminder that growth and hope could exist even in the most unlikely places. As evening approached, Lyra prepared for the next day. She checked the path mentally, noting any changes and anticipating obstacles. Each day was similar, yet never exactly the same. Adaptability was essential, and she was determined to keep Neva safe no matter what. Lyra paused at the window, looking out over the colony. The tall towers rose like silent sentinels, indifferent to the struggles below. But Lyra was not indifferent. She had faced these dangers before and would face them again. The path she walked each day was long and perilous, yet it was a symbol of something greater. Endurance, love, and the power of intelligence and courage over brute force. Her eyes fell on Neva, who was reading quietly at the small table. Lyra felt a surge of determination. No matter how many obstacles lay ahead, she would continue to walk. Each step was a promise, each mile a testament to what could be achieved with careful planning, clever thinking, and unwavering resolve. In the quiet of their home, Lyra allowed herself a rare moment of rest. Tomorrow would come, and with it, another journey across the alien-dominated landscape. But she was ready. She had survived today, and she would survive again. She would walk every mile, face every danger, and ensure that Neva had the chance to grow, learn, and thrive. The colony was vast and often unforgiving, but Lyra's determination was greater, and in that determination lay the quiet strength of humans, or anyone with human-like courage and perseverance, to endure, adapt, and rise, no matter the odds. The morning air was crisp as Lyra prepared for another long journey. The sky over Erebos Prime was pale blue, tinged with the faint orange of the rising sun. Smoke and steam from the distant factories swirled into the sky, mixing with the early light. Lyra moved with her usual precision, checking her pack, adjusting her scarf, and making sure Neva was ready. Today, something felt different. She could not explain it, but a faint sense of change stirred in her chest. Neva appeared at the doorway, rubbing her eyes. "Good morning, Mom," she said, her small voice carrying a mix of sleepiness and excitement. "Morning, little one. Eat quickly." "The day is long," Lyra replied, placing the small breakfast before her daughter. Neva ate carefully, the rhythm of their mornings as familiar as the rising sun. Once breakfast was done, they set off, stepping into the narrow lanes between the towering industrial buildings. The first stretch of the journey was uneventful, the usual alien patrols moving slowly along their routes. Lyra led Neva carefully, keeping her daughter close and blending into the shadows. Their movements were smooth, practiced, a dance they had performed countless times before. But as they approached the highway, a sound caught Lyra's attention, a deep rumble, unlike any transport vehicle she had encountered before. From around the corner came a massive human-operated truck. It moved steadily but with surprising speed, the engine's hum different from the alien machinery that dominated the colony. The driver, a tall man with broad shoulders and a weathered face, noticed them immediately. He slowed the vehicle slightly, glancing at Lyra with a mix of curiosity and respect. For a moment, their eyes met, and Lyra felt a spark of recognition, a connection she had never experienced before. The man spoke, his voice firm but kind. "You shouldn't be walking here alone. It's dangerous." Lyra hesitated. She was used to relying only on herself. Trust had to be earned, especially in a world dominated by aliens. But something in his tone, in the steadiness of his presence, made her pause. "It's not safe to stop here either," she replied cautiously. "Then come with me. I'll get you across the highway safely," he said. His confidence was not arrogant. It was quiet, practical, and reassuring. Lyra considered the offer for a moment. The risk was great, but the potential benefit was greater. "All right," she said finally, motioning for Neva to step closer. The truck driver extended a hand, and Lyra guided Neva toward the vehicle. They climbed into the cab, and the warmth inside was a sudden relief from the cold morning air. The man introduced himself as Ronan, a human who had spent years transporting goods through alien territories. His knowledge of the colony's paths, shortcuts, and dangers was extensive. For the first time, Lyra felt that their journey might become easier, not harder. As they drove, Ronan explained the safest routes, points to avoid, and times when alien patrols were least vigilant. Lyra listened carefully, absorbing every detail. Neva pressed her face against the window, watching the landscape whiz past, amazed at the speed and freedom the truck offered. It was a different perspective, one she had never experienced. The first challenge came sooner than expected. A group of alien enforcers blocked part of the highway, their tall forms silhouetted against the rising sun. Lyra's heart pounded. Normally, this section would have required careful timing and dangerous detours, but Ronan navigated with calm precision, steering the truck through a narrow gap and using the vehicle's size to intimidate the enforcers. Lyra's respect for him grew with each maneuver. Once past the enforcers, the truck continued along the industrial highway, covering ground that would have taken Lyra hours on foot in mere minutes. Neva's laughter filled the cab, a sound that warmed Lyra's heart. The journey, once exhausting and perilous, was transformed into something almost joyful. For the first time, Lyra felt the possibility of freedom, of hope, as they moved together through the colony. The halfway point brought a more subtle challenge. A A section of the highway had collapsed due to chemical corrosion, leaving a gap that seemed impossible to cross on foot. Lyra's heart sank. She had crossed this section before with difficulty, and it had nearly cost her the safety of Neva. But Ronan's eyes sparkled with quiet confidence. He slowed the truck, assessing the damaged area carefully. With skill and precision, he maneuvered the vehicle across the unstable terrain, the tires gripping uneven metal plates, the engine humming steadily. Lyra held her breath as they crossed, Neva clinging tightly to her mother's side. When the other side was reached safely, relief washed over them. Lyra felt a new sense of admiration and gratitude toward Ronan. For the first time, she realized that strength did not always come from endurance alone. Sometimes, it came from collaboration, trust, and cleverness. Humans were underestimated in the galaxy, but here was proof of their ingenuity and resilience in action. As they approached the outskirts of the school, another challenge emerged. A small gang of alien scavengers had noticed the truck and began to follow at a distance, curious and opportunistic. Lyra tensed, ready to take control if needed, but Ronan remained calm. He adjusted the route, taking a side path through a series of abandoned service tunnels. The scavengers lost sight of them, their interest fading when the path became too narrow for their larger forms. Lyra marveled at his knowledge and quick thinking. Finally, the school came into view, its small, fenced perimeter, a welcome sight. Neva's excitement bubbled over. She jumped from the truck as soon as it stopped, running toward the teachers and other children who had gathered at the gate. Lyra followed more slowly, savoring the sense of accomplishment. Today's journey had been faster, safer, and surprisingly enjoyable. The usual exhaustion was replaced by a quiet energy, a sense of possibility she had not felt in years. Ronan turned to Lyra as Neva disappeared into the school. "You've been doing this alone for a long time," he said. "You've got courage, but you don't have to carry it all by yourself." Lyra nodded, feeling the truth of his words. She had survived for years, relying only on herself. But perhaps there was strength in accepting help. "Thank you," she said softly. "Today was easier because of you." He shrugged, a small smile playing on his lips. "Humans are stronger than most think, but even the strong do better with allies." Lyra watched as he drove away, the truck fading into the distance. The lesson lingered in her mind. Her journey was no longer a solitary struggle. There were others in the colony who understood the risks, who could help, and who could share the burden. She felt a new determination to continue her daily walk, not just for survival, but for something greater, a future where humans could thrive, even in a world dominated by aliens. The afternoon passed quietly. Lyra returned home with Neva, walking the familiar paths with a lighter heart. She reflected on the morning's events, realizing how much difference one ally could make. The alien patrols, the industrial hazards, the scavengers, none of it felt insurmountable when shared with someone who understood the risks and had the knowledge to navigate them. That evening, Lyra sat by the small garden she had nurtured, tending to the plants with careful hands. Neva played nearby, her laughter a constant reminder of why these journeys mattered. Lyra thought about the future, about Neva's education, the potential for humans to reclaim a place of respect in the colony, and the possibility of forming alliances that could tip the balance in their favor. As night fell, the industrial towers glowed faintly in the distance, their lights reflecting in pools of water and metal surfaces. Lyra felt a quiet sense of hope. The galaxy was vast, and humans were small. But resilience, ingenuity, and courage were qualities that could not be measured in size or strength. Today had shown her that even the longest, most dangerous journeys could be made safer, smarter, and more meaningful with the right ally. Lyra made a promise to herself. Tomorrow, she would walk again, but she would also remain open to the unexpected. The colony was unpredictable, full of dangers and opportunities. She had learned that strength came not only from endurance, but from cleverness, observation, and collaboration. With Neva's safety and education as her focus, and allies like Ronan appearing in unexpected places, the future felt a little less daunting. She watched the stars emerge over Erebos Prime, each one distant and cold, yet a reminder that the galaxy was alive and full of possibilities. Lyra's journey was far from over, but she no longer felt the isolation that had weighed on her for so long. She understood now that courage was not just about surviving alone. It was about knowing when to trust, when to share the burden, and when to act with intelligence and precision. Neva approached her, sleepy eyes reflecting the soft glow of the stars. "Did something good happen today, Mom?" she asked. Lyra smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face. "Yes, little one. Today was a good day. We learned that even in a world full of challenges, help can come when you least expect it, and that makes all the difference." Neva nodded, satisfied, and climbed into bed. Lyra watched her sleep for a moment, feeling a profound sense of pride and hope. The challenges of Arivos Prime were many, but she was learning that strength was not only in enduring them, it was in navigating them smartly, in teaching Neva to do the same, and in recognizing allies when they appeared. The night was quiet, the distant hum of alien machines blending with the whisper of the wind. Lyra felt ready for the days ahead. Tomorrow, the journey would continue, but she would carry a new confidence, knowledge that even in a dangerous and uncertain world, humans could endure, adapt, and triumph, especially when they were not alone. The morning was calm, with a pale light spilling over the industrial landscape of Arivos Prime. Lyra woke earlier than usual, her body still tired from the previous day, but her mind alert. Today felt significant. She had walked the same path countless times. But with Ronan's help and Neva's growing confidence, she sensed that this journey might mark a turning point. Neva stirred in her small bed, blinking sleepily at the soft light. "Good morning, Mom," she said, stretching. "Good morning, little one. Eat quickly, we have a long day," Lyra replied. She prepared their modest breakfast, watching Neva eat with the same careful focus as always. Afterward, they set off, moving quickly and quietly through the narrow lanes between the towering industrial buildings. The streets were busier than usual. Alien workers moved about, hauling crates and performing maintenance, while distant patrols cast sharp shadows across the ground. Lyra led Neva carefully, blending into the movement of the colony, her senses alert for any unexpected obstacles. When they reached the highway, Ronan's truck was waiting, engine humming softly. He waved at them, a small smile on his face. "Ready for another ride?" he asked. Lyra nodded. "We are." Neva ran ahead briefly, then returned to climb into the cab. The warmth of the vehicle was welcome, and for the first time, the morning journey felt less like a struggle and more like a coordinated effort. As they moved through the colony, Lyra reflected on the months of daily walks and the recent alliance with Ronan. The risks had always been high, but today's journey had a new purpose. The school had planned a field exercise outside the colony's safe zones, designed to teach the children practical survival skills. Lyra had agreed to accompany Neva, knowing the danger was greater than usual, but confident in Ronan's skill. The first challenge appeared sooner than expected. A group of alien enforcers was conducting random patrols near a heavily trafficked transport route. Lyra felt a brief moment of tension but watched as Ronan skillfully navigated the truck along a less visible path. They passed through narrow service tunnels and maintenance corridors, their movements smooth and precise. Lyra marveled at his ability to turn dangerous territory into safe passage, realizing how much stronger they were together than apart. Halfway to the field location, the truck came to a stop near an abandoned warehouse district. The route ahead was blocked by collapsed walkways and unstable structures. Lyra's heart quickened. The path would have been impossible alone. Ronan climbed down, assessing the area carefully. "We can make it through, if we move in teams," he said. "I'll lead. You follow with Neva. Watch your footing and stick close." Lyra nodded. She had learned over the years that calm decision-making and careful observation often mattered more than raw strength. Together, they navigated the debris, moving slowly and deliberately. Neva followed, her small hands gripping her mother's as they stepped over broken metal plates and around puddles of steaming chemical runoff. Every movement required focus, but the rhythm of cooperation made it feel manageable. Suddenly, a loose piece of metal shifted beneath Lyra's foot. She tensed, ready to protect Neva if she fell. With a swift adjustment, she balanced and continued, teaching Neva the importance of awareness and adaptability. "Always watch your steps, little one," she whispered. "The world can change beneath you in an instant." The group finally reached the open field beyond the warehouses. It was a clearing surrounded by the remnants of older structures, partially shielded from the colony's main pathways. The children scattered, eager to explore and learn, while the teachers observed carefully from a distance. Lyra allowed herself a small smile. Today, the journey itself was part of the lesson. As they moved across the field, a distant rumble caught Lyra's attention. A gang of scavenger aliens had spotted them and was moving to intercept. Lyra's heart pounded. The children were small, vulnerable, and unprepared for combat. She felt a surge of determination. Years of daily walks, of facing dangers alone, had prepared her for moments like this. "Stay close," she whispered to Neva, gripping her hand firmly. Ronan positioned the truck strategically, creating a barrier between the children and the approaching scavengers. Lyra realized that this was no longer about survival alone. It was about leadership, protection, and teaching others to endure. The scavengers approached cautiously, unsure of the coordinated humans before them. Lyra took a deep breath and assessed the environment. Using fallen beams and debris, she created obstacles, slowing the aliens' advance. Neva watched intently, learning to anticipate danger and respond with careful, deliberate actions. Ronan's presence amplified their effectiveness. Together, they used strategy rather than strength, demonstrating that clever thinking could outmatch brute force. The scavengers, frustrated by the human coordination, eventually retreated. Lyra's chest heaved with relief, but the lesson was clear. Intelligence, planning, and collaboration were as powerful as any weapon. The children, wide-eyed, absorbed the demonstration. Neva's admiration for her mother grew with every step, seeing firsthand the courage and ingenuity that had guided them through countless dangers. After the threat passed, the group continued with the field exercise. The children practiced navigation, communication, and problem-solving under Lyra and Ronan's guidance. Lyra felt a quiet pride. Each child who learned these skills was a step toward a future where humans could thrive, even in a galaxy dominated by aliens. By late afternoon, the exercise was complete. The group returned to the edge of the colony, navigating the hazardous paths with the confidence born of experience. Lyra's steps were steady, her movements deliberate. She had faced these routes countless times alone, but today she understood something new. Strength was amplified when shared, and courage was contagious. When the school gates came into view, Neva ran ahead, her face alight with excitement. The teachers greeted her warmly, praising her for her courage and skill. Lyra followed more slowly, reflecting on the day's events. The journey had been challenging, but it had also been empowering. Humans, underestimated for generations, were proving their resilience and ingenuity in tangible ways. Ronan approached as they prepared to leave. "You handled that well," he said. The children learned more than any classroom could teach them today. They saw courage, intelligence, and teamwork in action. Lyra smiled, a quiet pride filling her chest. "Thank you for your help. Without you, it would have been much harder." Ronan shrugged modestly. "It's not about me. It's about showing what we can do when we work together. Humans endure, adapt, and overcome. You've been doing that for years. And now the children can see it too." As evening fell, Lyra returned home with Neva, their path quiet and calm. The colony's harsh lights glowed in the distance, but within their small enclave, a sense of hope lingered. Lyra reflected on the lessons of the day. Survival was no longer just about individual endurance, it was about teaching, guiding, and building alliances. Back at home, Lyra tended to her small garden, the familiar act grounding her after the day's excitement. Neva played nearby, her laughter soft and content. Lyra thought of the future. Neva's education, the skills she had learned, and the growing network of humans who were learning to navigate the alien-dominated world with intelligence and courage. As night descended, Lyra sat by the window, looking at the stars. The galaxy was vast and often harsh, but humans had a strength that could not be measured by size or force alone. Ingenuity, determination, and the ability to work together made them formidable in ways the aliens often underestimated. Neva approached her, sleepy but content. "Did we do something important today, Mom?" she asked. Lyra smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face. "Yes, little one. Today we learned that courage and intelligence, when shared, can overcome even the greatest challenges. We showed that humans and anyone with determination can make a difference, no matter how small they may seem." Neva nodded, understanding in her own simple yet profound way. She climbed into bed, tired, but inspired. Lyra watched her for a moment, feeling a sense of fulfillment that went beyond exhaustion or relief. The journey, once a solitary struggle, had transformed into a shared mission of protection, education, and empowerment. The night was quiet, save for the distant hum of machinery and the soft whisper of the wind. Lyra felt ready for the days ahead. The path through Erebos Prime remained dangerous, but she had discovered a deeper truth. Survival was strengthened by collaboration, and courage multiplied when shared. For the first time in years, Lyra allowed herself a quiet hope. She had faced danger alone, endured hardships, and protected her daughter through sheer will and cleverness. Now, with allies like Ronan and the knowledge she could pass on to Neva, the future felt possible. Humans, small in number but vast in potential, could endure, adapt, and thrive. She closed her eyes briefly, letting the night wash over her. Tomorrow would bring another journey, another set of challenges, but she felt ready. With determination, intelligence, and the support of others, there was nothing she could not face. The galaxy was vast, but humans resilient, clever, and courageous had a place within it. Lyra rose, checking the small home one last time before resting. Neva slept peacefully, unaware of the full scope of the dangers they had faced, yet strengthened by the lessons learned. Lyra felt a quiet pride. The journey had transformed them both. No longer was it just a walk to school. It was a demonstration of endurance, teaching, and the quiet heroism that defined their lives. As the stars shone over Erebos Prime, Lyra knew one thing for certain. Humans, even when small and underestimated, had the power to endure, adapt, and triumph. And in that triumph lay the essence of who they were: clever, resilient, and unyielding in the face of any challenge.